All right, it is day 25 of my quarantine. I know that because of these little packets that my wife uses. There were 25 of them. She had one a day, so she got to 25. Figured out it's exactly day 25. And it is Saturday, April 4th, 2020. So what did I do today? I walked around the city of Seattle, keeping a good social distance from people. Uh, I have a little mask thing that I wore too. It's like a thing. I've had it for a long time because I prep and try to be prepared for what's going to come at me. And I've been expecting this for a while, so I'm relatively well prepared for it. At least, though I'm finding that I'm not quite as prepared as I thought I was going to be. Um, anyway, I'm in good spirits. Feel great. Don't have any problems that way. My mental health seems good. I'm I'm fine. I've got a good schedule going, so I feel like that's part of it. And I'm exercising. I hurt my back a little bit, so I haven't been doing weights as much. But I went on a really long walk, um, some bike rides, stuff that kind of exploring different areas, keeping good social distance, 6 feet, 6 feet. And when I walked around downtown one day, one thing I will tell you that worries me a bit is there are large groups of homeless folks that do not seem to be very well socially distanced, and that's a little bit worrisome. I'm hoping that that we can figure out something to do with and that will help them not, you know, get through this. One other thing I noticed, there were some people walking in front of me that I think I was seeing a lot of people that looked kind of dope sick. Like they hadn't been able to get the drugs that they wanted, and probably heroin or fentanyl or something like that, not coming in as regularly as it was before. So yeah, which I don't know. Maybe it will help. It's like kind of the jail rehab. If they can't get the drugs because of pandemic time, then maybe they can sober up. I mean, that would be a wonderful silver lining to this whole thing. Along with the environment, is wonderful. Seattle's it's like the mountains. It's quiet and it's there's a lot of animals, birds, and owls. I've seen two big owls, which is strange. I've never seen an owl before in my life in Seattle until the last month, and I've seen two. Well, I saw one, and then I heard one. So big one though. Anyway, other things in quarantine, I can't get a haircut, which is a problem because I feel like I'm starting to get. You can see that they're starting to get like some. I'm starting to get a little mullety. I'm bringing Indiana. I had a mullet back in '86. I was rocking it. Def Leppard was on the radio. I was in Indiana. Um, it was the '80s in Indiana. What are you gonna do? Everybody's got a mullet. Um, but I rocked that mullet for about a year. I think it was like my freshman year of high school where I really kicked in the mullet. Really was that was when it was really solid. What else can I tell you about Seattle? I Yeah, there's still a lot of boarded up buildings. I mean, I've discussed all of that before. I am preparing for my next step of quarantine, which is going to the land. I told you in my kind of prepping thing, I got 80 acres I can go to, and it's my family's land. It is left to me from my grandfather, who unfortunately passed away. My grandfather grew up during the last depression in Hartford City, Indiana. Well, farm outside Hartford City, Indiana. He ate squirrels for food, all the rest of that. Anyway, he bought this land because he, in his twilight years, wanted a place where he could go and grow crops and fish and do all the rest of that. So we got 80 acres. And thank you, Grandpa Long. And it's nice land. It's beautiful. 10 tillable acres, got a couple of lakes, fully loaded with fish. All the lakes are spring fed. Doesn't get much better than that. And I love it down there. It's an uncomfortable. I mean, it's Indiana in the summers, but it's hot, and It's got that mugginess to it, but honestly, it's like you got a lake, just jump in it, which is what I usually do. It's good exercise. I love swimming. So I'm getting ready to head out there if it really hits the fan. And why I think that it's going to hit the fan is because a lot of people couldn't pay their rent on April 1st. And there doesn't seem to be a real solution to that. I mean, if you're a landlord, you can't really put pressure on people to pay their rent if no one's got money. So what I envision happening, and what I saw a lot when I was walking around Seattle today, was a lot of signs for a rent strike. And I think that's what's probably going to happen. And what I want to talk about a little bit is the answer to the problem. The problem is debt. We just can't afford. There's been a lot of consumer debt, business debt, every type of debt. And Wall Street just loves debt. That's what Wall Street creates. Is a lot of what it creates is just debt. And back in, not a lot of people know this, but back in the medieval times, I think it'd be medieval, Middle Ages, we had serfs and nobility. The nobility would had all the power, so they would basically create a worse and worse and worse deal for the serfs. The serfs would get more debt and more debt and more debt. The nobility would want more of their crops, and they want more from them and more from them, until it just became unbearable, and the serfs would all go up in the hills and form an army and come back. And obviously, if you got enough people, you're going to win. So the queen would think about it and say, well, do I really want to like the nobility enough that I kind of like to remain queen? So she would call a jubilee, and the jubilee was where all debts were forgiven, and the serfs would come back out of it was a big party because everybody got out of debt, and the nobles could afford it because they're nobles, and they ain't gonna starve. And that was where the jubilee came from. Anyway, our only current option, if you have high unemployment, where people just can't pay their bills, and a mountain of debt, is something like the jubilee. You can't bail out creditors. You have to basically let it default and rebuild the system. And I just don't see that happening. I see that happening eventually, but I don't think it's going to happen now. And I think there's enough pressure within the system that something's going to give. And I think that's going to be civil unrest. Not to mention that people got to be stuck in their house once you lost your job. You're stuck in a house they're trying to throw you out of because you can't pay your rent or you can't pay your mortgage. I mean, how is that going to work? I don't see it working out. And so I've got my 80 acres. Problem is, I need a little bit more in the way of food. My food can be. I'm going to subsidize my food with a lot of fish because I got fish. Like that ain't even. That's not even remotely a problem. So, I'm going to be eating bass and bluegill and whatnot for the next 95 years. Deer, I want shoot one deer a year, and I think I can do that. I got some. They're all over the place. I got turkeys, big wild turkeys, and 10 tillable acres. So between all that, I feel like, I'm not great at this stuff, but I can fish and I'll be okay. I've lived outside for 3 months once, even in an igloo. I lived in an igloo through December. Igloos are pretty comfortable, by the way. I lived in about 20 below zero in an igloo. So I think I'm good to go. My family, on the other hand, is going to be unhappy about it. But by the time we're ready to go, I don't think there's going to be any complaints because it's going to be too dangerous by that time anyway. Anyway, that's my plan. I'm going to ground with the rest of my extended family. My sister, my brother-in-law, my dad, my niece, nephew, daughter, we're digging in for the duration, which is always what we plan to do. Funny part is, I've had this land. This land is, my dad has it. Got it from my grandfather. And for years I said, we got to keep this. We got to do this. We got to get this. I tried to, you don't know how many times I asked them that we got to get some storage, some food storage. And, and everybody, for years I've been the laughing stock of my family. I'm not afraid to admit it. I've been that guy that's like, oh, Uncle Mike with his crazy food idea, whatever, Mister, you know, Mister Happy with the wonderful like Armageddon plan and all the, that type of shit. Yeah, who's laughing now? Dad. My dad's always saying that stuff. So's my brother-in-law. So's my sister. So's my wife. Anyway, so that's the plan. Digging in, getting prepared to dig in. I got 4 states I got to cross to get there, but I can do that. That is definitely doable. And I've been thinking about bad times for maybe 10 years. So I worked out a lot of different scenarios in my head. Like, oh, if this happens, I do this. If this happens, I do that. This is what I need to do to get there. This is what I need to do to get there. And I try to keep it simple. If you're going to do all this stuff, Armageddon movies are probably not the way you want to go. I spent a lot of time, my first degree, well, it wasn't really a degree, but it was a classes, I guess. I went to National Outdoor Leadership School. So I lived outdoors for 100 days. And I've done a lot of stuff like that where I could live on dried food and hike around and be perfectly fine. I've ridden my bike across country, slept under bridges if I had to because snowstorm was coming in. There's no hotels. I'm not poor, but I've always kind of had this thing. So I don't know. It just worked out for me. Strange, but it did. So anyway, that's what I'm planning to do. Not immediately. I'm in prep mode for that. Prepper. And hopefully it won't come down to that, but it's always better to have a backup before you need it. So I got my backups for this, and now I'm going to get my backups for that. And I hope that explains it.